Hello, my name is Catherine Jewett, and here is my presentation on global warming. So the purpose of this is to answer the question, is global warming naturally occurring or is it man-made? And to do that, I'm going to go through the background of global warming, the effects of global warming on animals, human air side, naturally occurring side, my personal opinion, COVID-19 effects, and then conclusion. So the background of global warming, so global warming really just means it's a rise in the average temperature of the climate system. So the first global warming was taken in 1810, and it recorded at 13.7 degrees Celsius. And then global warming dates back to the first Revolutionary War in 1820 when manufacturing started. And then in 1859, Tyndall, who was a scientist, showed that some gases block infrared radiation. In 1958, telescope studies showed how the greenhouse gas effect raises the temperature in the atmosphere above Venus. And the last global warming temperature was taken in 2019, and it recorded 14.8 degrees Celsius. And that was from the American Institute of Physics. And on the right, it's a picture of Pittsburgh at noon, and it shows how bad the pollution is. It literally looks like it's nighttime, but it's midday. So how is global warming measured? So it's measured the air temperature from the space, water, land from all over the world over 15 to 30 years with high-tech equipment and measures and stuff. And then that gets graphed and a trend can be seen. So what does global warming affect? So it affects the weather pattern. As temperature increases, there's a higher chance of weather disasters happening. Glaciers are melting, causing severe droughts and sea levels to rise, and also causing ice to melt. And as you can see the picture on the right, that's a polar bear, doesn't have any more ice except that little piece. Animals' habitats are in extreme danger. Cities face heat waves, causing more allergies and pollution from pollen. And heavy downpours are more likely, can cause damage to buildings. So the 4 reasons that humans are being responsible for global warming, and that is industrial plants, vehicle emissions, deforestation, and electricity. So how does human activity affect the global warming? So NASA said, there's a quote that you can read, but the one part that I want to point out says, we know that the long-term trends are being driven by the increased levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So these greenhouse gases, which are methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, just to name a few, these gases, they absorb the radiant energy, but they don't allow infrared radiation from leaving the atmosphere. And these gases, they trap that radiation, from human activity, and it warms the planet. And methane usually can be found in agricultural things, and carbon dioxide will come from burning coal, oil, gas, cars, trains, those things. So industrial plants, so the United States Department of Agriculture said in 2019, 29.7% of greenhouse gas emissions come from industries. And we're talking about, the big smokestacks that they're constantly burning these coal, oil, and gases. And it's because, the demand for gas increases, and so does the greenhouse gas emission because, more people are driving cars, buying cars, taking the train. So they have to keep producing these things. So vehicle emissions, so according to the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, in 1990, there were 0.11 vehicles for every 1,000 people, and in 2012, there were 108.99 vehicles per every 1,000 people. And vehicles burn the gasoline and diesel, which are fossil fuels, and so meaning that they release the carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and so that carbon dioxide is just sitting there. And humans are the ones that are choosing to buy cars, get in the taxi, take the bus, take the train, when if they chose to walk or bike, that could help the environment a lot, which it may not seem like it does, but it could. Electricity. So the United States Environmental Protection Agency said that 28% of the total U.S. greenhouse gas emission is coming from electricity production. And humans demand that energy because it makes our lives easier and makes our lives faster. And we're talking about things such as microwaves, charging your phone, light bulbs, TV, gas stoves, all those things that require electricity is actually hurting the atmosphere. So deforestation, so during photosynthesis, trees will take in the carbon dioxide and then they release oxygen. So when trees get cut down, all that carbon dioxide gets released into the atmosphere. And the Rainforest Alliance said deforestation alone causes about 10% of worldwide carbon emissions. And humans are the ones that are knocking these trees down to build, big buildings, skyscrapers, new houses, all these things. And, some of that 10% might come from trees dying and falling down, but a lot more of it is coming from humans being the ones knocking it down. So now we're going to move on to the reasons why global warming is naturally occurring. There's 3 things: Earth's orbitals, volcanoes, and ocean currents. So Earth's orbitals, so the Earth will go through warm and cool phases. That is how the Ice Age happened, because it was in the cold phase. And the climate of the Earth really just depends on the amount of energy that is stored within it. And as the Earth goes around the sun, the temperature will vary because the intensity of light changes from the sun. And that is from NASA. So volcanoes, so naturally volcanoes emit carbon dioxide when they're dormant and active, as well as when they erupt. And whenever they erupt, all this carbon dioxide gas gets released into the atmosphere. And according to NASA, the Earth Observatory, they said that volcanoes emit between 130 and 230 million tons of carbon dioxide per year. And just to give a real life example, in 1982, when El Chichon erupted, which is a famous volcano in Mexico, particles stayed in the atmosphere for more than a year, reflecting the sun. And there were some sources that said, they'd walk around during the day and it would just look cloudy all the time, even though it would say the sun that was out. So Earth's oceans currents. So currents move water depending on the temperature, density, and salinity of it. Warm surface currents move less dense water away from the equator, and then cold dense water towards the equator. And this will affect global warming because the currents help the uneven distribution of solar radiation hitting the Earth's surface. And it also takes a lot more energy to raise the temperature of water than it does air, per se. So, overall, this will warm the climate because, all this water is moving around trying to balance it out. So my personal opinion, humans are 100% to blame for global warming. But I also think a lot of small things every single person can do every single day to help the solution. And with the current pandemic right now, COVID-19, I just wanted to talk about the effects, how that's affecting global warming. So despite it being a terrible time, global warming has actually gotten a lot better. China was the first country hit with the virus, and China is also the largest contributor of carbon dioxide emissions. And a New York Times reporter said that China measures to contain the virus in February alone caused a drop of an estimated 25%. So as you can see down here, it is the NO3 density in the air. So the one on the left is from January 2020, and the one on the right is February 2020. So as you can see, before the virus hit, there was a lot of pollution in the air, and then before the virus hit, there was a lot of pollution in the air. Once the virus hit, there was very little, and that's because human activity with the stay-at-home order, people aren't out, driving cars, taking trains, doing any of that, and it can show that there's a direct relation between the global warming and human activity. So, in conclusion, global warming, is a real issue. And I think hopefully with this COVID-19, people are able to realize that human activity actually has a direct correlation between global warming, and that, with just by staying in, with just by turning off your lights before you leave your room, any of that it can actually impact global warming. And I think with this pandemic, people actually will start to see that, because if this keeps up, then our children might not have a planet to live on. And so, yeah, I hope that this presentation makes people realize that global warming is an issue, and that everybody can help do something to make it better. And here are my resources. Thank you.